Today, we're talking about leadership where rubber meets the road, literally. Dr. Asa James Swan served as Chief of Staff at the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and now is the founder of Great Leaders. Dr. Asa, I've actually not referred to you as Dr. Asa yet in person, so this is kind of fun. How are you doing today? And welcome to the studio.
Good, Aram. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. I think we're going to have a great time today. Looking forward to this. I'll start off with a couple of icebreakers. First off, having been in the political realm somewhat, I'm curious if you could add anyone to Mount Rushmore, who would it be and why?
I like a lot of people, I love Ronald Reagan.
Okay. Yep.
And I always laugh. I think about Back to the Future when Marty tells the doc who the president, and he goes, "The actor?"
That's great.
And it is so good. But, I grew
That's
up,
funny.
I was a boy in those days, the Cold War, the end of the Cold War. And that's how I remember, seeing what the president was like. And I loved his humor. He would diffuse people's attacks on him with humor, which I wish we had that again.
For sure.
And he usually made fun of himself, which I also love the humility of that. So yeah, probably him.
That's good. I like it. Most used emoji, if you were to guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any concrete data, but
probably if I could take out the little heart, just because it's like saying, "Hey, sounds good," Let's see. I'm just thinking about all the different ones. I do use a lot of them, and it's interesting because I think there's an age thing here, because like younger doesn't seem like they use any anymore, and then older folks who it's like 20.
Yeah.
Like they just like they put their elbow on it. It was like, fire, hands, praise hands, right, or whatever.
That's great. That's so good.
Okay, I would say I probably use the punch, the fist, the most, but I enjoy all of them.
That's right. It's like having a favorite kid. It's like we things we appreciate about all of our kids.
And I'll tell you this: I have saved the gifts that I love. Like I have them saved on my phone, so I can just send them real fast. I have like 43 or 4 now.
Okay.
But because they're just, sometimes they're just perfect. And I used to be, years ago, I was on a team where that was kind of our thing. And it was whoever could get the best gift to respond. My friend LaDonna was the best at that. She was a master.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Nice. Cool. Good stuff. All right. Well, jumping into things here, Asa. I want to talk a lot about leadership and how it pertained to your time at the Transportation Cabinet. We're going to kind of bounce around on a few different things within that timeline. Obviously, starting out before you got to the Transportation Cabinet, you were a history professor at Lindsey Wilson, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about that immediate transition, right? You're a history teacher for 7-8 years at this point.
8 years. Yep.
8 years. Okay. Right. So you're doing that. You're kind of got a good thing going there. You know what you're doing in history. And then you're now chief of staff for an agency that's responsible for thousands of miles of roads, bridges. So what's the single biggest, I guess, adjustment from a leadership standpoint you had to make when going from academia to a more high stakes, very operational world? What did that look like for you in particular?
I had to get very intentional in everything I did. Leaders, the best leaders really practice intentionality. They don't just kind of let life happen and they're lackadaisical about it. And my, teaching, just several classes a week. I didn't teach on Fridays. That was gone. 80-hour weeks appeared. This is pre having kids and also before I got married. Although I was dating my wife at the time when I started, and we were engaged soon after. But yeah, I really had to maximize my time. And the real danger of that is it's very easy to cut out valuing people when you're busy. So I actually included in my schedule time every day to just do something where I was really like seeing people or hearing them, because I think those are just the two pieces of valuing,
Yeah, for sure.
And so like I would handwrite. One day I'd spend half an hour handwriting some notes. Another day I'd be out just walking around, being proximate and letting them know, literally, I see you. And also, hey, what are you doing here? And then I get to see what they're doing professionally. But that was the biggest adjustment, was how I really had to try not to waste time because it was precious.
Yeah. It's interesting you're talking about noticing people, connecting with them one-on-one. That kind of bleeds into the second thing I was curious about, which is that kind of relational aspect. Because correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but my understanding of at least the transportation cabinet, having known a few friends in there, and I assume probably a lot of other government agencies, is that you've got skilled but also very long tenured workforces, right? So these aren't,
Mm.
I'm
Hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong on the transportation cabinet. These are people that probably have been there for a while, or at least more than a couple of years in most cases, right? So I'm always interested to talk to people that are coming into a setting like that, whether it's at a corporate level and their new leadership, and you've got people that have already been there for 10, maybe 20 plus years. I think there's a lot of trust that has to very quickly get established, right? With the new face. It's like, who is this, random person that showed up? I've been here for ages. This is how we do things. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, I think the bureaucratic system in general is known for not being the fastest moving, quickest decision making operation already. So with or without the tenure of employees, the fact that it's like, oh, we got to go through all these, signatures, we got to get passed and all this stuff. So I'm just curious, yeah, like you're talking already about relational, and that was something you were ahead of out of the gate. Are there additional adjustments and things you had to be conscious of when you're stepping into a place where people have already been there longer than you have, and you've got to develop that trust?
Oh yeah, that was a challenge. I think it's a challenge for any new senior leader, right? When they
Mm-hmm.
come into a workspace that already exists. It is such a gift when you get to define it from the get-go, like a new business, but most of us don't get that luxury. We inherit the good and the bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of what was there before. And then
Yep.
kind of like turning the Titanic around, you begin to figure out first what is it like here? One of the good questions about a culture is like what are the unwritten rules here that everybody knows but it's not written down and
Mm.
that people only talk about quietly or not so quietly, I guess. But at the water cooler, or what are they thinking
Yeah.
about as they drive home at the end of the day that they're
What are
frustrated
they
with?
not? What are they not talking to you directly about? Maybe.
Right. Yeah. And I call those the ghost rules. What are the ghost rules of a place? Because when the leader isn't speaking into that and providing clarity, they always become very toxic and negative. They never
Mm.
rise to some great, grandiose, oh, we love each other and we support each other, but with
Yeah. Yeah.
you, no, they sink to everyone kind of looking out for themselves and kind of believing the worst. But we're like that, right? If you text me, Asa, call me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, Aaron's in trouble. And like, hey, guess what? I just had a great sandwich. What? Dude, why did you say that? But I fill in the gap, right?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
So on the leading people who are older than you is a challenge because they've been around longer. They actually do know more than you. And so I think there's a two-way street there that is the healthy balance and good for the workplace that finds it. But the balance is they know more than me. I need to have my hands out and in a posture of humility and listen and learn from them. And at the same time, just because I'm younger doesn't mean I don't know anything. I have something to contribute here. And if I'm the boss, I've also been chosen for a reason. So they need to have
Sure.
the humility to then go, what can I learn from Asa? And what is it about him that is worthy of following? Right? Because
Mm.
one of the big, like our maxims at Great Leaders, my company, is good leaders know how to follow.
Mm.
And when I see a leader who could lead, be number one every time, everywhere, and everybody would love him or her, when I see them come down and they just take that fourth slot or the 12th spot or whatever and just go all in, that tells me this is a mature leader here because they know as a leader, I really just want to help fill in the gap. But one last thing on
Yeah.
the older piece, I think some people can't do it. They can't
Mm.
be led by somebody much younger, a little younger, sure, and then there's a lot of others there's some who don't care. I don't care, whatever. And then some in the middle, like, well, I want to kind of see what you're like. But this is from the experience my wife and I have had now we've been married almost 10 years and we've had people older than us who've been amazing. And the majority of actually not even the majority, the vast majority, I would do it again. But I have
Yeah.
had a few who told me to my face they would follow me, and they resented me
Interested.
for being younger. And I was
Huh.
36. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I started as chief of staff at KYTC, I mean, you've got engineers and CPAs and lawyers. I mean, you have all these professional people um, who are, a lot of them are very good at what they do, and they've stayed there, like you said, like they have tenure. And so just showing, hey, I'm here to lead, but I need your help, and I will help take care of you. Like, how can I lead
Mm.
you best? Here's how you can help me. You just begin to show that you can be trusted. And I have thoughts on that too, how you build trust, but that's what I
Yeah.
had to do, Aaron. And
I
I'm not saying
I
I did
love
really well, but it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. And I love what you said about ghost rules. I've never heard it defined like that, but I think that's absolutely true. Every organization, like across the board, has those, right? No,
Oh,
like no
yeah,
matter what you're walking into, they
totally.
all have already set the rules that are unspoken, that are
Right.
like you just don't know until you've been there, and trying to learn what those are early on, and rather than not for the purpose of just gutting everything and like remaking it to your liking, but to say, hey, like I'm coming into new turf. It's not mine by trust right away. It's mine by position. And so now I have to balance position and find the trust by playing by those rules to some degree. Obviously, there are ones that might be problematic, but generally speaking, I think a lot of the ghost rules, like you mentioned, are, at least in my experience, I think they would probably, for the most part, be mostly harmless. They're just quirks. It's just like, look, this is kind of how people like to operate, and this is where they're comfortable. And if it's not damaging things, then at least operating within that, at least initially, will just help people feel like, hey, this guy's not running in here just to, throw everything out and draw everything up from the top down. And I think that's a great way of putting it. I'd never heard that term before, but that's solid.
Can
Yeah.
I speak into that for one more minute?
Yeah, definitely.
You just got my wheels turning. So Carly Fiorina was the first woman to ever lead a Fortune 50 company, Hewlett Packard. She says that when a senior leader comes into an organization and they're new to it, she says 20% of everybody will follow you right off the bat, because they're generally the like people who are excited about, hey, you're new, we want to help you, we're with you.
Yeah.
20% will oppose you no matter what you do. And then there's 60% in the middle that want to be convinced. And I think she's right about that. I mean,
Mm.
obviously that's just a number she kind of picked out, but that's
That's
her
cool. Yeah.
experience. And Aram, I think she's right. The way the thing that I find that I think most senior leaders don't understand, and we do, this is the G in great for great leaders is gritty, leading, which is my word for getting really good at leading yourself well. This falls into that category, even though it affects all the other four areas in the
Hmm.
across acronym I have. But the cues that the senior leader gives off define those values and cultural like rules that make up the ghost rules. And a lot of senior leaders don't know that the little things they're doing are sending a huge message out into the culture. So for example, like at LexClean, like if you are always right on time and
Mm.
people can tell it bothers you when they're not, guess what happens?
Yeah.
Even if it's not in the handbook, the new rule in your culture is everybody better be here at 8 o'clock, not 8:01. Or like that's, and I don't think you would be like that. But let me tell you how I am. Like, let me get it. I'll put it on myself and make it not hypothetical. I want people to be on time, but I want a pattern of that. I also know that life happens, and
Mm.
sometimes your kid throws up in the car, or there was an accident on Versailles Road. People, coming into
Yeah.
KYTC from downtown Frankfurt or whatever, and you're late. It's okay unless it's a pattern. So, like, if I'm the senior leader, that's what the unspoken kind of rule would be, because I want people to clock in. If you say you're coming at 8, then I would like you to be here at 8. But also,
Right.
if you say I
Right.
need to be here at 8:30, fine, that's great.
Yeah.
But we're going to hold you to that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
everyone,
good.
the core of all leadership training is everyone takes their cues from the senior leader. That is the beginning of understanding leadership, because we're comparative
Mm.
and we all watch. And
Hmm.
everyone's watching the leader for good or for bad. And then the leader for good or for bad, is giving off all these cues, whether they know it or not. So like intentionally, and then also in their blind spots. And that hugely is defining for everyone behind them what to do, how to do it, and what not to do, and then never do it this way. So that's why your self-awareness in working on, hey, what cues am I giving off, is crucial to being successful as a senior
Yeah.
leader.
Yep. That's awesome. I think that's spot on all the way around. I'm curious if again, this is just a guess on my heart. I have not worked in transportation myself, but having been in a industry, cleaning
Yeah.
is largely a thankless job for whatever reason. Like nobody really cares until there's a problem. Like it's only noticed and it's like, whoa, hey, why is this here? Is that the case largely in transportation? And if so, can you talk about, maybe an experience where something did go bad, like something really went bad, and you have to figure out a way to cross that hurdle while hopefully keeping people's morale intact and keeping the team in a good spot, but also moving through that and addressing that problem.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know where to so in a well, let me ask you this. When do you want me to talk about the trust piece of that, or more just the all these different backgrounds that are coming together and then you're trying to
Yeah.
help?
Whichever you think is most applicable. For me, generally what that means is in my experience, what's happened is everything could be going great, and it's not until somebody forgot something or there was a shift change and something happened and it wasn't communicated, and now there's a big problem, or there's an entire area that didn't get serviced. And so it's like we can go 6 months and everybody's flying high and nobody cares, everybody's great, and then one thing goes wrong and it's like, hey, what the heck happened? Why, and it's like,
Right.
it's almost, there's like all this undue pressure for what may or may not be minor, but is very, very rare. Right.
Yeah.
And I think when you're, depending on the size of the organization, those problems are sometimes not that big of a deal, right? If it's one or two people that are involved, it's like whatever. But if you're dealing with something that's a little bit larger, then, that's going to be harder to absorb, right? That impact.
We inherited a situation in 2015 where the previous administration had massively overspent on road projects.
Okay.
Because in November 2015, they spent more in 1 month than we had ever spent in a year up to 2013.
Whoa.
So kind of like a pig swallowing, okay. A python swallowing a pig, like the glut going through.
Okay.
We didn't have it. And they knew that. They knew we wouldn't. So we spent the first 6 months trying to figure out how to navigate that problem, because Kentucky's road fund was going to go bankrupt.
Wow.
And how great. The new guy, the check bounced on the road project money. Wow, that's embarrassing. Yikes. And Aaron, what made it particularly hard is, we're going on projections on tax revenue, but now we've got to go convince the legislature as well, because they're benefiting from a lot of those projects. And at the time, we had the state Senate was controlled by the party of our governor, but the state house was not.
Yeah.
And my real task was to convince them, namely our budget chairman for transportation. She was from Eastern Kentucky. And she's kind of famous because she was the one, I don't know if you remember this, but years ago, but her gun went off on the floor in her purse. Do you remember that? Did you ever hear that?
Yeah.
It made national news, like state rep fires gun. And it was loaded and it went off. All right. Well, that's who I had to go convince. So, yeah.
That's great.
So I'll tell you, so how did we handle that? Because we inherited that problem, but now it's our problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, a lot of those projects, some of them I do think I don't know that we needed those, maybe some favors. Some of them we did really need. It was a combination. We were going through them trying to figure that out. Where is there a real need here? And then what do we not need? Okay. What we did is first, we had to convince everybody that our numbers were correct. So that was the first thing, giving everybody confidence, because it's very easy to say, well, your numbers are wrong. Well, I hope you're right, because if the check bounces, I can't say, sorry, the numbers were wrong. And then they're going to be, oh, it's okay. We'll take 100 million next month. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So we really got we did the work of walking, like we all practiced like talking about it. And well, first of all, we had to be sure. And here's the thing, we knew that in August of 16, that's when it would happen, because that's when there's a real glut in
Yeah.
payments. And for like the car tax and the gas tax, we just knew. And it's also summer. So projects are going all over the state. Money's flowing
Yeah.
out, not as much coming in. And anyway, so we did that. And then we came up with a plan. So not just here's the problem, but now what are we going to do? And we slowed everything down. That was our plan. We canceled a few things, but mostly we just slowed it. So instead of a year project, we said it's going to be a year and a half, or, and just try to take that pig and flatten it some, right, where we can handle like the swallowing of it, budget fiscally. When I went to do the meeting with the chairman, I don't know what, I felt like it was actually God, but I had this thought right before we started to hang back. And I waited for her to come in. And I know her because we would see each other. My wife sometimes gets tickets to UK games. And I had met her a couple times at UK games, my chairman. And we had a good rapport. I waited and I just had the thought. I told my staff, save the seat next to hers for me. Because they wanted to put us facing each other across this big table, like a meeting of the mafia families, But I'm there I want her to trust me. I'm here. I don't want to say this. Don't kill the messenger, but also you need to believe me, because we're going to have to own this if we screw it up. And Aram, I sat next to her and she looked at me like, what are you doing? And so that whole meeting, even though there was I'm serious, there was 20 people in there. It was me and her, and I'm just sitting next to her, like showing her together, like we're studying for a math, algebra exam in college. But sitting next to her, this is something I learned years ago in politics. When you get closer to people, it calms them down for the most part. Whereas if I'm back here, you can be like, shut up. Blah, blah, blah. But if I'm standing right in front of you, it's people can still do that, but it's harder because now they're right in front of you. And we sat there, and one of my triumphs in my first 6 months is she would, I don't have my glasses on me, but she would look at you over her glasses. That was one of her things. Yeah. And she finally went, Asa, I believe you. And I was like, yes. And she said, I'm going to go tell the speaker. And my budget director almost fell out of her chair because she thought she couldn't believe it. Yeah. But the thing is, it's like I was like, Leslie, I'm here to help you. I need you to help me. Like we're going to go bankrupt. And Aram, here's the addendum to that story. We do all that work. We pulled stuff back, blah, blah. In August that year, our low day was like the 18th of August. And I think we had, I want to say, I don't know, it's been a while, like 64 million in the bank, but we had pulled back over 100 million. We would have gone under. Wow. And what's crazy is a year later, Montana, national headlines, road fund bankrupt. They did go under. Okay. All right. So
that's crazy. Yeah. Well, so this is interesting because what you're talking about, I didn't mention this up to now, but prior to being in academia, you were a legislative liaison, right? So you did that first before going. So I'm curious because you can parse out some of the details of what you did as a liaison, but to me, when I hear that, I'm thinking of leadership that is more horizontal, right? You're kind of managing relationships that you don't actually have stated authority of. Right. Makes sense. Like you're kind of doing this. So again, this is just me kind of like filling in the blanks here, but I'm hearing you tell about this incident. And it sounds like, was that just experience that you gained as a liaison previously that helped you kind of know how to navigate this way? And so when you don't always have the power to just top down say, this is what we're going to do. Like I actually need cooperation there.
That's good insight, man. I think the answer is yes. When I was announced as chief of staff, the other party had a big press release saying, he has no experience, he's not an engineer, blah, blah, blah. Sure. And I was like, do your homework, because I spent 3.5 years doing all the legislation, which Aaron prepared me because I touched all parts of the cabinet. Even though I'm not an engineer, you don't have to be an engineer. Like you don't have to be perfect at cleaning a bathroom to lead Clean Space and Lex Clean. I mean, people can learn stuff too, by the way.
Yep.
But I knew the cabinet on day one. There'd been 8 years in between, so I had to get caught up. But I literally knew where the bathrooms were, right? On day
Yeah.
one. And that's important because in our building, depending on which side you're on, they're on different sides. So people are always walking to the wrong bathroom, and then you hear like screams or, or people are super embarrassed because the men's bathrooms are on the inside of the building and the women's are out. We don't know why they did that
That's
instead
so
of just
funny.
like this and the same
Yeah.
direction on each side. Okay. That being less of a liaison, and I learned all I did. You're right. I didn't have authority to speak for the governor or the secretary of transportation unless they'd given it to me. Sometimes I did come
Right.
with that because it'd been given and I could
Right.
negotiate. But generally, I was there as a facilitator of a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Building trust. In 2006, I'd been there. That was my third year and third session. I mean, and I just felt like God really blessed me because I was the only one that year to get everything on my list passed, including the
Okay.
primary seatbelt law and the graduate driver's license, which had languished for
Okay.
years. And as
Wow.
a conservative, I wanted the primary seatbelt law because even though I don't like generally the government telling you what to do, I don't. The difference, all you do is go click versus you don't and you crash. And my taxpayer dollars for the rest of your life pay for you to be on disability. Whereas all you have to do is just click. And so it's an inconvenience we can all take, and it saves a ton of money because we all aren't either dead or horribly disfigured or disabled when we're in a wreck. And as a conservative, that's how I got to that and ended up winning about a third of that caucus over. So when it passed, people couldn't believe it. I couldn't either.
Yeah.
And that taught me like how to build trust, just to be someone like, when you build trust, you have to be consistent. Trust is built in consistent things over time, generally small things. It's not big things. So Aaron, if you're like, Asa, I'll see you at 10, but it's always 10:30, always. Well, I always know what Aaron's going to be late. And then, or if you're like, Asa, it was the best thing I ever had. It was so delicious. And I tried, I'm like, that was good. But then the next day, you're like, this is the best one I've ever had. And then it's good. Little things like that erode trust versus when you show up and it's what you said every time. And again, to bring back to senior leaders, that's why like clarity and being very specific and managing expectations and then being consistent over time, that's how you build trust. And real quick, when there's a change, because you asked me at the beginning of this question, like a problem or a change, and you were wrong, what you do then to rebuild trust is you go back and you just explain it. Walk them through, this is what happened, this is what I was told or I was led to believe, or I thought. It didn't happen that way. And if you need to say, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And they're, oh my gosh, the boss is wrong.
Yeah.
Me too sometimes.
Yeah.
And just there's beauty in the humility of owning it. But and then you say, and then you, like, if you ever watch Friends, but like pivot, you borrow from Ross.
Sure.
You then say, hey, now I'm going to change direction because this didn't work. And that's something I always want on my team is I want them to really like go for it. And then I'll make the call. And I tell the ones that I didn't land with what they wanted. I say, hey, look, if this doesn't work, we're going to do it your way next. But let me, from my vantage point, try it this way. And then if I'm wrong, hey, we'll try it your way. But there's also got to be grace that flows like two-way street for that. So, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, and so like another thing that I really love to talk to people about when it comes to leadership and get insight on is the tension between reactive problems and proactive vision, right? And when you have a culture that is primarily reactive, what tends to happen is like you're always dealing with the fire of that day or that week. And like you never really quite get ahead. Now, again, I'm never having worked in transportation. This is all just me like speculating, but there are plenty of reactive problems to be had in the transportation cabinet, I'm sure. I'm just like assuming that's probably the case. Like you've got things that are going on. But yeah, it's like, so if
trains,
that
planes,
was the case,
automobiles, right? Like boat. I mean,
like
we got it all.
What could possibly not go wrong? Like all the time.
Yeah.
So what does that look like when you're coming into maybe an industry that is even more prone to reactive issues? How do you get a proactive vision and how do you get that implemented in the culture so that it's not just, oh man, we're always playing from 3 days ago?
Yes, that's a great question. So Chris McChesney calls it the whirlwind. The
Mm,
whirlwind is why you come in with your 5 things for the day, and then at the end of the day, you've done maybe 2 of them.
maybe.
And
Yeah.
I love that because when I say
Yeah.
the whirlwind, I don't
It's
have to
true.
explain it. Everybody knows what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. But here, let me explain it though, right? Just so everyone's clear, like you're talking about the urgent that awaits you when you walk through the door versus the important,
Mm,
right? And there's always a tension between the two, and you can never get rid of the whirlwind, but you can. There are ways uh, to respond to it and try to contain it. And so again, like Aaron, what I recommend, like the leaders I work with do, is they have to be intentional. You don't have to do it my way, but you could. Here's what I say. Here's what I do. Take it like a recipe and make it your own. Or terrible. I don't. All right, do it your own way. But this is what's worked for me. Just find what works for you. But you do have to fix it, and you have to schedule time and guard it every day for the important. Jack Welch called it his stare out the window hour. And I
hmm.
love that
Yeah.
because he literally would. I'm up in my study. You've been here, Middle Earth, as I call it,
Yep.
Lord of the Rings map. All the Tolkien nerds have been hopefully geeking out. That's actually Gandalf. There's Gandalf right
There
there
it is.
too. But dude, but in his he did not let anybody take that hour from him. And yeah, of course you could, right? But if every now and then life happens, but you guard it. And he would just take a pad of paper and a pen, and he would sit and he would turn, and he's on the 80 something floor, right, in Manhattan of GE. And he would just look out the window, and then he would begin to just write down what came to mind. And then he would get going. So, and
Hmm.
that was it. And it could be 30 minutes a day, right? It doesn't have to be an hour, but that's what he did. And the next time I'm serving in a senior leadership role, I'm going to do that. And I'll just tell you, for me, for that hour, and maybe it'll be half an hour, and maybe it won't be every day, but it will be several days a week. I'm going to
Hmm.
probably rest, like literally, like have a cot and lay down for like 15, 20 minutes, just lay there, give my body a break. And I give my mind a break. I don't have to make decisions for the next hour. Because, a lot of what's hard on leadership is you make hundreds of decisions throughout the day. Leadership, in large part, is decision making and how you do that. That's why it's great to have other people come help you and think through, discern with you, right?
Yeah.
But that's how you've got to do it. That's the
It's
only
great.
way to push back on the whirlwind. And then,
Yeah.
let's say you did half an hour today. Well, you go home, but maybe you did 3 things today of the 5. But the third one was really, it's been weighing on you, and now you sleep better. You don't, because you had an hour of getting it out of your head. You wrote it down. So now it's here. You're not going to lose it. Oh, like, oh, I don't want to forget. No, you already wrote it down. You
Yeah.
sleep better. Like, it's amazing. That kind of, this plays into margin too, like having a little bit of margin between meetings. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big believer in 50-minute meetings instead of 60, 80-minute instead of 90, or even 25 instead of 30. I've got to pee at some point today.
Yeah.
I need to, maybe I just want to collect my thoughts. Like, wow, Aaron had some good thoughts and I want to write them down before the next thing or whatever. I don't want to run late all day into meetings like a chicken with his head cut off. So
Mm-hmm.
also the next time I'm the senior leader in a spot like that, that's how my meetings will be set up. And that's what I encourage my leaders to do, just so they have something
Great.
left at the end of the day. Also, when they can work, they can then bring some mental energy. Because I don't, man, as we get older, time doesn't become our most precious resource anymore. It's our energy. Because I run out of energy before I run out of time now.
Sure. That's
Yeah,
fair. That's
sadly.
great. That's great. I know it's so good. It's so good. I think that's yeah, I think that the proactive reactive thing is genuinely not quite as complicated as people make it out to be. It's usually simple solutions. But it is. It's just taking a beat, having those margins, having that ability to say, nope, no matter what, this area is what I'm where I'm going to use the process, and you can just get a lot of problems unwound there. So
5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
it is.
Lencioni, famous. A lot
Yep.
of us know it. One of the best books ever written. In this book, the senior leader in this fable, she takes her leadership team off site 8 days a year. That's 2 days every quarter, which sounds like a lot, but it's only 8 days. And they get away, and then they deal with things up here off site, and it really it keeps the whirlwind at bay. And I love that because there's actually, let's only talk about 4 kinds of meetings, and the offsite is the top level where you can really just soak in vision casting, in problem solving. Like, hey, we've got a systemic problem here. It's not just like this person or a little one-off. What are we going to do about this?
Yeah.
And so that's intentionality too. Sometimes it's just spatially that you're not in the environment where the whirlwind is. So I'm going to take, my team will know, hey, we're going to go, I don't know that it'll be 8 days a year, but we will go away at least a couple times a year off site. I mean, even if it's just down the road, I mean, when I go to Natural Bridge, like that's only an hour. It doesn't have to be Florida. And actually, since this is Kentucky state government, like cost wise, it wouldn't be Florida. We couldn't afford that.
You're not going to Milan and putting everybody up for.
Yeah. Like going to Davos. Yeah, right. Yep.
That's great. Love it. All right. So Asa, wrapping up here, I mentioned GREAT. So if people aren't familiar with your organization now, GREAT is an acronym, GREAT, right? Gritty, relational, equipped, authentic, transformational. So of those 5 pillars, what you're doing now, which do you think, and this is kind of like looking back, but which do you think might have been the hardest to practice inside a state transportation agency when you were doing that? And what, if it's the same lesson or maybe a different lesson, kind of anchors the coaching that you're doing now with leaders, across the Commonwealth, beyond, into other states? Yeah, maybe share a little bit about that.
Great question. So those 5 areas I think make holistically a great leader. Gritty, my word for leading yourself, like I mentioned. Relational, obviously leading others. Equipped is what I call where you're leading the room. So like speaking, how you look, just what you're giving off, self-awareness, what people hear from you, making sure what you say is what they hear. Authentic, world-class service, where people would never go anywhere else because, wow, they take such good care of me. And then my favorite one is transformational, which is building healthy, dynamic cultures. Because as you've heard people say, like, culture eats strategy for breakfast. People leave because they hate it here, not because the vision wasn't good enough. I mean, the last one, my favorite one, transformational, is the hardest one in the public sector because of the employee protections that the merit system, at least that's what it's called in Kentucky, have. I believe in a merit system. I do think we need to have protection for our workers so that as the parties change power, they don't just fire everybody and their team comes in, and then 4 years later, 8 years later, everybody gets whiplash and they do it again. However, ours is in need of reform. And I'll give you an example. I had a lady who was stalking people in her office, and it took me 9 months to get the personnel board to fire her. Wow. And that just drove me crazy. I had to get her out of the building because she probably had mental illness, but she was scaring people in the office. And so I put her on paid leave. So I did that for my people, but the people who should be ticked about that are you and me, the taxpayer, because we paid for her to be at home doing nothing for the state. Why couldn't I just get rid of her?
Yeah.
It's so onerous. You can fire people in Kentucky state government, but it just takes a long time. And you need to be able to be fired. But in the same way, that's the bad part. It's also not as easy to reward people as I would like. They have these things called ACE awards, but there's a limit on how many people can get them per year, as well as how much you can give. And the thing is, Aram, if you're the best of that team of like 9 people, well, in the private sector, you would be promoted and then probably compensated with more money, and they'd get rid of 3 of the dead weight on there, and then you lead the other 5, right? So it's come from 9 to 6, and now you're the leader. That takes months to do in the system. And senior leaders need to be able to have the authority to both trim the tree and also reward, like if they want, promote quickly and like raise the pay or even just give a bonus. Doesn't even have to be a raise, but you did amazing on this project. I just want to give you $500, some margin for the month because I see you. And by the way, I love that one because sometimes you don't have the money to do a raise yet. But a small bonus, just something to say, we see how hard you worked on that, can go a long way.
Yeah, I love it. I remember this is a study somewhere that I'm failing to cite correctly, but I remember reading how we're like, I don't know if it was 10 or maybe 20 times more likely to say something negative before we, leave a positive review for someone or something or a place, whatever it is, right? Like we're just naturally, it's easier for us to be like, oh my gosh, I was wronged. I hate this. I'm going to go like share it everywhere. It's like, whereas like if you have a good experience, it's like, oh, I guess I'll put it out there. It's like,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
it's kind of sad that we default to that, but it is like recognition means so much to people. And in some cases, even more so than just even a nominal raise, like just some recognition that was like, hey, man, thanks for coming out. Thanks for showing up and kicking it on this project and, really giving it your all. And that I think that's right. Like just something so people can feel valued and that they're not just a person in a sea of faces that's, could be overlooked. So
Yeah,
that's
Aaron,
good.
Marcus Buckingham showed years ago, I think it's when he was at Gallup. I'm trying to remember where he was, but they asked managers, what are the top like 10 ways you think employees would want you to reward them? And of course they said
Right.
pay. Then they
Yeah.
asked the employees, it was fifth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Fifth.
It's
Number
crazy.
one, get this, number one is I know what's expected of me,
Hmm.
which tells me we're not
Wild.
being clear. And
Yeah.
then when we think we're clear, we need to probably keep going. My whole thing is like, I want them to be like, shut up, we know.
Yeah.
In a good way, I always try to make sure I give a practical with, if there's like a leadership truth, then how do you practice it? But a
Hmm.
good way to do that is at the end of a meeting, or even if it's a like a huddle, go around and say, "Hey, what did you hear me say?" Or like, "Hey, what are you going to do now?" And it lets you check to make sure. Because I blame the leader, Aaron. I mean, it's the buck stops here, but really, usually my what I want my leaders I work with to do is if something happens and it's a failure, their first question is, "What did I not do correctly? What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
What did I do?" Because
Yep.
usually our teams want to do what we want them to do. Well, if
Right.
they want to do it and they didn't do it, so probably I'm the problem for a lot of it. That's just something where you want to try to find ways to, help yeah, just help them know what it is you expect of them, and then have them say it back to you, because sometimes
Mm.
they don't hear what you said. They just don't. Or I said it in a way that maybe was kind of coded, or maybe I used a slang word, and they were like, uh-huh, and then they didn't know
Yeah.
what it was.
Sure.
So that's a good thing at the end of a meeting. Go just, hey, can everybody go around and just tell me what we're going to work on now? What did your
Yeah.
takeaways from the meeting?
That's
And
good.
then like, hey, Asa, I heard you say you want me to work on this. Well, I'd be great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But that's a good way. Clarity, dude. Yeah, I love what you said about honoring people, especially in front of teams. Honor. I heard this once. Honor publicly results in influence privately, and I
Mm.
love that.
It's good.
Like some
It's
people
good.
will die if you do that. Other people will
Sure.
drink it in. Just the love languages, like
Yep.
what ways people receive love, what they show it. But all right,
Awesome. Love it. Man, this has been so much fun. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting
yeah,
to
me too.
parse through some of this with you. I think you just got a lot of amazing experience here, and this is
Thank you.
just helpful in so many arenas. But man, what is the best way for people to get connected with you,
Yeah.
to stay in touch, and to learn more about what you're doing now?
Okay. Yeah. So I have a great website. Bill Reynolds, Element 502. They've done an amazing job for me out of Louisville, and they came for you too, by the way.
There you go.
Bill is and his team. They on my website. It's great-leaders.org. So great leaders, but with the dash in the middle.org. And I talk about like my leadership philosophy. You've heard about some of it today. I deploy through coaching, training, and consulting. Depending on the project, I purposefully don't. I just want someone to tell me what they want to work on, and then we
Mm.
do it, and then we're done. You don't have to
Mm.
hire me for years. I never do
Sure.
anything in perpetuity. I would love at the end if you're like, hey, let's keep going. But if not, great. I want to help you with the thing. We'll do it, and then we'll be done, and we can go from there. But yeah, you can also email me at asa at great-leaders.org. But yeah, those are probably the two best ways. The website it's connected to Calendly. You can set up a time to
Okay.
talk and stuff. So yeah,
Awesome.
that'd be
We'll
awesome.
link
And
we'll
you can
link
call
that here in the
Aaron,
show
and
notes.
and he can.
Yeah, I'll just pass you right along. That's great. Awesome. Well, man, thanks again for jumping on here today. I am glad that we have been able to get to know each other a little bit recently. I think we're gonna have a lot of crazy adventures here in the years ahead, and I'm excited for what you're doing and staying connected to that as well. So thanks for sharing your wisdom with everybody today, and we look forward to catching you down the road.
Thank you, Aaron. Good to talk to you, man.
Awesome. Cheers, buddy.
See ya.